welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards are $1. I'm David, and this is the dazzling Daniela.
Hi everyone!
Okay, today we're going to talk about fun and balanced duel decks. Now these duel decks are all 2 colors, 60 cards, and meant to be a perfect match against any of the other decks within this series.
And best of all cards used are under $1, so each deck costs an average of $11.
That's right, so let's have a look at the guild today. Today we have the Simic Combine, which is a green and blue guild.
Guild mechanic, Evolve. Creatures with Evolve gain a +1/+1 counter whenever another one of your creatures enter the battlefield with a higher power or toughness.
That's right, so the deck playstyle is going to be to start the game with small creatures that quickly grow to epic proportions to finally destroy your opponents with deadly hydras. Well, let's have a look at the creatures, shall we?
So now we are going to start with the Guild Champion. It's Floral of the Hallclad. For 3 mana you get a 1/4. Pay 2 and tap. For each counter on target artifact, creature or land, put another of those counters on that permanent.
Yeah, so basically this guy's going to come on the table, and the turn after that and every turn after that you're going to be paying 2 mana to double the counters on one of your creatures most likely. It's going to make a small creature into a big creature into a huge creature. Very, very nice.
Now we go on. We get Bomb Beetle. For 1 mana you get a 0/1. When this card enters to the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target's creature.
Yeah, for 1 mana it doesn't seem very impressive. He does come in as a 1/2, which means he will trigger some of your evolved creatures. Top of that, if you don't need that, you can just pop that +1 counter on somebody who's more impressive.
Now we get a Cloudfin Raptor. For 1 mana you get a 0/1. It's flying and evolve.
Yeah, this guy is surprisingly effective beginning of the game because he's got evasion in flying, and he will become really, really big very, very soon. And plus he's got flying, so he's going to be doing a lot of damage over the course of the game.
And the Embodiment of Spring. 1 mana you get 0/3. So you can pay 2 and tap. And you can sacrifice Embodiment, so this card of Spring. Search your library for a basic land card, put it into your battlefield, tapped, then shuffle your library.
Yeah, so how you're going to use this guy, he's going to come in early. He can either come in as a really good blocker at the beginning of the game. A little bit later he can trigger all your evolved creatures, and naturally medium part of the game you can sacrifice it to give you some mana acceleration.
And Experiment 1. For 1 mana you get 1/1. Evolve and remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Experiment 1. Regenerate this card.
This card is super strong at the beginning of the game. He's going to evolve with every creature coming into the battlefield with power and toughness bigger than it, so it's going to become a 2/2, a 3/3 really quick. On top of that, after that, once it becomes a 3/3 or higher, people are going to have such a hard time killing it because you can always just remove 2 counters from it and then regenerate it.
Now we have the Shamble Shark. For 2 mana you get a 2/1. It's flash and evolve.
Yeah, most of this card's just in there because it's awesome. Look at it. It is a fish crab. It is a shark with crab legs, and it comes in when your opponents least expect it, probably to trade with one of their attacking creatures, and if not, it's going to be evolving over the course of the game, so getting bigger.
Now we have the Ambush Viper. For 2 mana you get a 2/1. Flash and Death Touch.
Yeah, so it's basically like the Shamble Shark on steroids because it also comes in with flash, but because of the Death Touch, it's going to kill anything that it blocks.
And the Gestian Infiltrator. For 2 mana you get a 2/2. This card is unblockable.
Super nice. Pop it down, start attacking, people can't stop it. What's not to love?
And the Vine Lasher Kutsu. For 2 mana you get a 1/1. Whenever a land comes into play under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Vine Lasher Kutsu.
Yeah, super handy. Of course, you put this guy down early, and as you get lands, as you're playing lands, it's going to be getting bigger all on its own, and it's going to become a house before the end of the game. People have to cast some kind of removal on it to stop it.
And Zamek Guildmage. For 2 mana you get a 2/2. Pay 2. This turn, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Or the other option, pay 2 and remove a +1 and +1 counter from a creature you control, and then draw a card.
Yeah, mostly going to be using that second ability because your creatures are going to be getting counters on by themselves anyway, and then you can use those to get extra card draw if you got the extra mana. But sometimes it's going to be early game, creature comes in, you got 2 mana extra, you might as well have it come in with an extra +1/+1 counter.
And then Beautiful Mage, for 3 mana you get a 2/2. Pay 2, and then this card gets +2/+2 and gains flying until of turn. Activate this ability only once each turn.
Yeah, I love Beetle Form Mage. It may seem super unimpressive just for 3 mana at 2/2, but you can attack with it and people don't want to block it because they think, wait a second, you could turn it into a 4/4 at the last minute. Okay, I'm not going to block it, so it comes through. Otherwise, you can do it before the combat phase, turn it into a 4/4 flyer, and then they can't block it even if they wanted to. It does a lot of work, all for such a little Beetle Form Mage. Very nice.
And our Winged Coatl, for 3 mana you get a 1/1. Flash, Flying, and Death Touch.
Yeah, this card is going to kill your opponent's biggest flying creature or stompy creature. It doesn't matter. As soon as they attack with it, you're going to be able to flash it in, and with the Death Touch you're going to trade, just like the Ambush Viper, except this one's got flying. And if they don't, you got a 1/1 that you can, with evasion, that you can use to attack with.
Then Elusive Crisis, for 3 mana you get a 0/4. This card is unblockable and evolve.
Yeah, it may seem, okay, well, how are you going to do damage with the 0/4, but of course it's going to evolve, so as soon as something else comes, it's going to have bigger power than 0, it's going to become a 1/5, then it's going to become a 2/6, and as it's unblockable, you can attack with it with impunity. On top of it, it's going to have a huge butt with that 5 or 6 toughness, so it's going to be able to stop almost anything if you want.
And this one is my favorite, the Lore Skill Coatl. Why is it my favorite? Because whenever you draw a card, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Lore Skill Coatl, so it keeps on growing.
Yeah, this guy is going to get really, really big, and it's actually one of the most reliable ways of getting +1/+1 counters on any creature, actually, because it's every turn you're going to be drawing a card, and you've got even more ways of drawing cards in this deck, so it's going to become super huge, super quick. Love it too.
And Trigon Predator. For 3 mana you get a 2/3. Flying Ant. Whenever this card deals combat damage to a player, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls.
Yeah, that's true. It's for 3 mana, it's a pretty good body, actually, 2/3, and on top of that, it's going to be able to get through very easily because it has the flying. It's going to be doing damage, and on top of that, also destroying an artifact or an enchantment. Yeah, this card does really a lot of work.
Then Renegade Crisis. For 3 mana you get a 3/2. Evolve, and whenever this card evolves, put a +1/+1 counters on each other creature you control with +1/+1 counter on it.
Yeah, so for 3 mana, 2/3 is not bad. It's got evolve, so it's going to get bigger, and every time it evolves, hopefully you're going to have a couple of smaller creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, so that all of them are also going to get +1/+1 counters on, making a huge army of initially very small guys that are going to become epically large, all thanks to the Renegade Crisis.
And Assault Zeppelin. For 4 mana you get a 3/3. Flying and Trample.
Very simple, very basic, 3/3 flying trampler. Nothing more to say about it, it's just handy.
Crowned Seratok. For 4 mana you get a 4/3. Trample, and each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has Trample.
Yeah, the big problem you have when you have really, really big creatures that get so big because they have all these +1/+1 counters on them. Say you have a 5/5, a 6/6. Is the problem is people are going to block it with 1/1s. So you want these creatures to have evasion, some form of getting through without getting blocked. So some of the creatures have unblockable, others have flying. This guy's going to give all those guys trample, being able to get through as well. Super handy.
Then Horizon Chimera. For 4 mana you get a 3/2. Flash, Flying, Trample, and whenever you draw a card, you gain 1 life.
Yeah, it may not seem like a lot, but you're going to be drawing a card every turn, plus you got more ways of drawing cards, so you're actually going to be able to get quite a bit of life out of this guy. Plus, the fact that he is a 3/2 flyer is going to be able to do a lot of damage to your opponents over the course of the game.
Then Fathom Mage. For 4 mana you get a 1/1. Evolve, and whenever a +1/+1 counter is placed on Fathom Mage, you may draw a card.
Now, this is one of my favorite cards. Whenever you had the choice of putting +1/+1 counters on a creature, you're going to want to, or even doubling them with Varel, you're going to want to choose Fathom Mage because you're going to draw a sick amount of cards, plus this girl's going to be getting bigger, so it's pretty much going to be game at that point.
Then Adaptive Snapjaw. For 5 mana you get a 6/2. Evolve, and That's it.
That's it. Yeah, it's not a fancy lizard beast. It's a very simple little basic guy. He's got a little bit of toad in him as well. I think a little bit of rat. And he just has a lot of power, which means that later on in the game he's going to be able to make evolve creatures that have already grown or evolved a couple of times. And its low toughness means that it's still going to be able to evolve as well from other smaller creatures coming in. So it's not fancy, but it gets the job done.
And Sapphire Drake. For 6 mana you get a 4/4. Flying, and each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying.
Yeah, pretty much the same story we had it with the trample. That evasion is very important to give to all our big guys who have a lot of +1/+1 counters on them. Sapphire Drake takes them into the air and lets you attack with all your big fatties.
And then Hero's Bane. For 5 mana you get a 0/0. This card enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 4, then put X +1/+1 counters on Hero's Bane, where X is its power.
Yeah, basically every turn, as long as you got 4 mana, you can double its power and toughness. If you got 8 mana, you can do it again, and if you got another 2 left over from Varel, you can double that again. So in essence, this guy on the table plus a creature like Sapphire Drake or the Crown Ceratops, give it evasion or trample or something, you can kill people in one blow. Super, super powerful.
Then Nessian Wild's Ravager. For 6 mana you get a 6/6. Try with 6.
Yeah.
When Nessian Wild's Ravager enters the battlefield, if tribute wasn't paid, you may have this card fight another target creature.
Yeah, so in essence, this guy comes in, he's a 6/6, and it either kills one of your opponent's creatures of your choice, because it's gonna, 6/6 is gonna be bigger than anything they have most likely. And they say, no, I don't want to lose my guy. Then you're going to get 6 +1/+1 counters. So in essence, you're going to have a 12/12 coming onto the battle for just 6 mana. And of course, you got Varel, you're going to be able to double those 6 +1/+1 counters. And if you got the other guys, you're going to give trample, maybe flying. In essence, it's going to be a nightmare. So they're going to want to let one of their own creatures die. It is an awesomely powerful card. Those are actually all of our creatures. Let's have a look at the enchantments. This deck has 3 enchantments.
The first card, Shielding Plagues. 3 mana. When Shielding Plagues comes into play, draw a card. Enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control.
Yeah, this is a really good enchantment because you're going to want to pop this on one of your creatures that's going to be getting a lot of +1/+1 counters. It's going to be getting really, really big. So it's going to be the prime target for your opponents to remove with some kind of removal spell. By casting this on it, it basically has hexproof, so they can't destroy it that way anymore. Super handy. Plus, you also get to draw a card, so you don't even lose the speed from playing this spell. Very nice.
The next card is Bread for the Hunt as well, 3 mana. Whenever a creature you control with +1/+1 counter when it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card.
Yeah, we really want to be drawing cards. As you saw already, we want to be getting a lot of cards. Plus, we're going to be getting a lot of creatures with +1/+1 counters on them. So this has perfect synergy with that strategy.
Then the other card is Favor of the Overbeing, 2 mana. As long as enchanted creature is green, it gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. As long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and has flying.
Yeah, so basically you want to pop this on a creature that's both colors. You're going to have a creature that's probably already going to be packing loads and loads of counters. It's going to be huge. On top of that, it's going to have evasion in its form of flying. People can't block it. And since it has vigilance, you can use it to block as well. It is going to be a house. It's going to be doing tons and tons of damage and tons of work. Those are the enchantments. Let's have a look at the artifacts. This deck has 3 artifacts.
First card, Simic, 3 mana. First thing you can do is tap it and add a green or a blue to your mana pool. The second thing is pay 2 and tap it. Sacrifice Simic Cluestone and draw a card.
Yeah, so this is very handy. At the beginning of the game, of course, it's going to mana fix you, it's going to mana ramp you, and later on, if you don't need it anymore, you can sacrifice it for maybe something better.
Second card is a Simic Giron, 3 mana as well. First thing you can do is tap it and add as well green or a blue mana to your mana pool. Second thing is pay 2. Simic Giron becomes a 2/3 green and blue crab artifact creature with hexproof until end of turn.
Yeah, this is very handy because again, it mana fixes you, mana ramps you, and later on in the game, you can make it a 2/3, which you use to either block or to attack with. This is a hexproof. People are not going to remove it that easily with spells. Very nice.
And then the last one, Armory of Iroas. 2 mana. Whenever equipped creature attacks, put a +1/+1 on it. And you can equip 2.
Exactly. So this is a super handy artifact equipment to have because we want to be putting +1/+1 counters on our creatures, and this allows us to start doing that really early in the game, and every time they attack we get a +1/+1 counter. On top of that, just remember you get the +1/+1 counter when they attack, so already before they can block, you already get that +1/+1 counter. Alright, those are the artifacts. Let's have a look at the instants and sorceries.
Simic Charm, 2 mana. You have 3 options for this card. Choose one. Target creature gets +1/+3/+3 until end of turn. Or permanents you control gain hexproof until the end of turn. And then the last one. Return target creature to its owner's hands.
Yeah, Simic Charm has great versatility. The first one, +3/+3, so you can win a combat at instant speed, like it's a combat trick. People are not expecting it. The second one's super handy when you've got all these huge creatures with loads of counters on them. You can protect them by giving them hexproof against some kind of instant speed removal or sorcery speed removal. And finally, you can return target creature to its owner's hand. That's super handy if you want to get rid of an opponent's creatures at the last minute, or in case you want to protect one of your creatures from being destroyed, you bring it back to your hand, you can cast it again later on. Very handy, lots of versatility there.
So now we get the give and take card. 3 mana. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on the target creature at the give card. Then the take card. Remove all +1/+1 counters from target creature you control. Draw that many cards.
Yeah, so you can, for 6 mana, you can cast both of these simultaneously. In essence, if you have no counters on your creatures, you can just draw 3 cards. That's not too spectacular. Mostly you're going to want to put counters on a creature, which gives you benefits when you put counters on that creature. Or when you're really late in the game, you got no cards in your hand, you top deck this card, and then you can remove all +1/+1 counters, and you can refill your hand again with all the cards that you require, giving you a great advantage. Very handy in that sense.
Now we have the Beer Shift. 1 mana. Move any number of +1/+1 counters from target creature into another target creature with the same controller.
Yeah, this is an awesome trick card during combat because you're going to be attacking with probably one creature with a lot of +1/+1 counters, and maybe another one or another 2 creatures which don't have that, and then people think, oh, I'm just going to block the very weak one, or I'm going to block the really big one, and then I won't die. And then with this card, after people have declared blockers, you can move those counters to another creature. You can either make sure that they die, or you can push all the damage through that they were not expecting because they thought that they blocked a really big creature. Very handy in that sense.
Now we have the Rapid Hybridization card. It's 1 mana. Destroy target creature that can be regenerated. That creature controller puts a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token onto the battlefield.
Yeah, now green and blue are not known for destroying creatures, so this is quite a rare card, but it's very flavorful because Simic is basically just evolving whatever that creature was into a 3/3 lizard frog, so that's hilarious. Very handy. They do get a 3/3, but if they have a really handy utility creature, you can get rid of that by just destroying it. It can't be regenerated.
Yes. And then the snake form, 3 mana. Target creature loses all abilities and becomes a 1/1 green snake until the end of turn. And then you can draw a card.
On top of that, so that's pretty sweet. So you can basically make sure that that creature, when they block or when you're blocking that creature, they lose all their abilities and they just become really small and they're going to die. On top of that, you get cantrips, so you draw a card, you're not losing any speed on that. Very nice.
And a cancel, 3 mana. Counter target spell.
Very simple, very clean cut. You got 3 mana open, they cast their big fatty, you say, no you don't, goes into the graveyard, goodbye, end of story.
And a Hunt a Weak, 4 mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then, that creature fights target creature you don't control.
Very nice. As we already said before, blue and green does not have a lot of destroy creature cards, but by putting a +1/+1 counter on one of your creatures, which is of course stuff we want to do in this deck, on top of that we get to fight against a probably much weaker, much smaller creature, destroying that creature. Super handy. You can do all this at sorcery speed, so you can do this before combat. You eliminate one of the creatures, and you can attack probably unopposed. Yeah, very handy.
Next card is Plus from Capture. 4 mana. Counter target spell. At the beginning of your next pre-combat main phase, add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is that spell's converted mana cost.
Yeah, I feel like I'm repeating myself by saying, yeah, very handy card. I'm going to say that again with this card because not only is it a cancel, so it counters target spell, on top of that you get to take that mana that they put into it and use it in your turn to cast something fat or something awesome of yours. So yeah, I'm going to have to say that it's also very handy, but only if you leave your mana open, and only if, of course, they cast something that is probably going to be more than 4 mana. So you save it. This is a great end of the game card to destroy your opponent's hopes and dreams. Those are the instants and sorceries. Let's have a look at the lands.
Okay, we divided the lands in 9 forests, 9 islands, and 4 guild gates.
Yeah, even mana distribution, same as all the other decks. Nothing more to say about that. Now let's have a look at the conclusion.
In conclusion, this is a very fun deck. And why is it? First of all, because you begin with a small creature, but it grows. So it's useful in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end.
Yeah.
The other fun part is that because of the counters, you might have or get the biggest creature.
Yeah, that's super handy. I really enjoy playing this game as well, this deck as well, because as you said, there's a lot of counters, there's a lot of counter shenanigans that you can do. You can switch counters from one guy to the other. You get benefits when you're attacking with creatures and counters. They get trample, flying, all kinds of cool stuff. And because of all the counters, as you already said, they get really big and people have to remove them, but you've got also choices for hexproof and other ways to protect your creature, so it is a blast. On top of that, it's pretty affordable, right?
Yes, it is. It's only $11.24.
Yeah, you can check out the deck list below. On top of that, what we're going to ask you to do right now is to press that subscribe button because it allows us to get the word out. It lets us know that we're doing a good job. Plus, you'll get a notification whenever another one of our videos comes out. So please press that subscribe button right now. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm David.
And I'm Daniela, and this was Budget MTG Decks.